Eliyahu, Elijah, from the tithe, Tishbite, an inhabitant of Gilead, said to Achav, "As Adonai, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there will be neither rain nor dew in the years ahead unless I say so." Then the word of Adonai came to him, "Leave here, turn to the east, and hide in the Vadi Crete near the Jordan. You are to drink from the stream, and I have ordered the ravens to feed you there." So he went and acted according to the word of Adonai. He went and lived in the Vadi Crete near the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the stream. After a while, the stream dried up because there was no rain in the land. Then this word of Adonai came to him, "Get up, go to Zarephath, a village in Zidon, and live there. I have ordered a widow there to provide for you." So he set out and went to Zarephath. On reaching the gate of the city, he saw a widow gathering sticks. He called out to her, "Please bring me a little water in a container for me to drink." As she was going to get it, he called after her, "Please bring me a piece of bread in your hand." She answered, "As Adonai your God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of meal in a pot and a little oil in the jug. Here I am, gathering a couple sticks of wood so that I can go and cook it for myself and my son. After we have eaten that, we will die." Eliyahu said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go and do what you said, but first use a little of it to make me a small loaf of bread and bring it out to me. After that, make food for yourself and your son, for this is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says: the pot of meal will not get used up, nor will there fail to be the oil in a jug until the day Adonai sends rain down to the land." She went and acted according to what Eliyahu said. And he and her household had food to eat for a long time. The pot of meal did not get used up, nor did there fail to be oil in the jug, in fulfillment of the word of Adonai spoke through Eliyahu. A while later, the son of the woman whose house he fell ill. His illness grew increasingly serious until his breathing stopped. She said to Eliyahu, "What do you have against me, the man of God? Did you come to me just to remind me how sinful I am by killing my son?" "Give me your son," he said to her. Taking him from her lap, he carried him into the room upstairs where he was staying and laid him on his own bed. Then he cried out to Adonai, "Adonai, my God, have you brought also this misery on the widow I am staying with by killing her son?" He stretched himself out on the child 3 times, cried out to Adonai, "Adonai, my God, please let this child's soul come back into him." Adonai heard Eliyahu's cry. The child's soul came back into him, and he revived. Eliyahu took the child, brought him down from the upstairs room into the house, and gave him to his mother. And Eliyahu said, "See, your son is alive." The woman replied to Eliyahu, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of Adonai that you speak is the truth." A long time passed. Then, in the 3rd year, the word of Adonai came to Eliyahu, "Go, present yourself to Achav, and I will send rain down on the land." When Eliyahu went to present himself to Achav, the famine in Shimron had become severe. Achav called Obadiah, who was in charge of the palace. Now Obadiah greatly revered Adonai. For example, when Isabel was murdering Adonai's prophets, Obadiah took 100 prophets, hid them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and supplied them with food and water. Achav said to Obadiah, go throughout the land and check all the springs and wadis. Maybe we can find grass somewhere so that we can keep the horses, mules alive and not lose all the animals." So they divided between them the territory to be visited. Achav went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. Obadiah was on the road when suddenly Eliyahu encountered him. Obadiah recognized him, fell on his face, and said, "Is it really you, my lord Eliyahu?" He answered, "Yes, it is I. Go, tell your master, Eliyahu is here." Obadiah replied, "How have I sinned, that you would hand your servant over to Achav to kill me? As Adonai your God lives, there can't be a single nation or kingdom where my master hasn't sent to search you out. And in each kingdom or nation where they said, 'He isn't here,' he made them take an oath that they hadn't found you. Now you say, 'Go tell your master, Eliyahu is here.' But as soon as I leave you, the spirit of Adonai will carry you off to I don't know where, so that when I come and tell Achav and he can't find you, he will kill me. But I, your servant, have revered Adonai from my youth. Wasn't my Lord told what I did when Isabel killed Adonai's prophets? How I hid 100 of Adonai's prophets by 50s in caves and supplied their food and water? Now you say, 'Go tell your master, look, Eliyahu is here.' Why, he'd kill me." Eliyahu said, "Adonai Svaot lives, before whom I stand. I will present myself to him today." So Obadiah went, found Achav, and told him. And Achav went to meet Eliyahu. When Achav saw Eliyahu, Achav said to him, "Is it really you, you troubler of Israel?" He answered, "I haven't troubled Israel. You have. You and your father's household, by abandoning Adonai's mitzvot and following the Baalim. Now order all Israel's assembly before me on Mount Carmel, along with 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Isabel's table." Achav sent word to all the people of Israel and assembled the prophets together on Mount Carmel. Eliyahu stepped forward before all the prophets and said, "How long are you going to jump back and forth between two positions? If Adonai is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him." The people answered him not a word. Then Eliyahu said to the people, I alone am the only prophet of Adonai who is left, while Baal's prophets number 450. Let them give us 2 young bulls. They can choose the bulls they want for themselves. Then let them cut it in pieces and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it. I will prepare the other bull, lay it on the wood, and put no fire under it. Then you call on the name of your God. I will call on the name of Adonai, the God who answers with fire. Let him be God." All the people answered, "Good idea, agreed." Then Eliyahu said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose 1 bull for yourselves and prepare it first, because there are many of you. Then call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it." They took the bull that was given to them, prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us!" No voice was heard, and no one answered, as they jumped around on the altar as they had made. Around noon, Eliyahu began ridiculing them. "Shout louder! After all, he's a god, isn't he? Maybe he's daydreaming, or he's on the potty, or he's away on a trip. Maybe he's asleep. Do you have to wake him up?" So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and knives, as their custom was, until blood gushed out all over them. By now it was afternoon, and they went on ranting and raving until it was time for the evening offering, but no voice came. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Eliyahu said to all the people, "Come here to me." All the people came up to him, and he set about repairing the altar of Adonai that had been broken down. Elihu took 12 stones in keeping with the number of the tribes of Yaakov, to whom the word of Adonai had come, saying, "Your name is to be Israel." With the stones he built an altar in the name of Adonai. Then he dug a trench around the altar large enough for half a bushel of grain. He arranged the wood, cut up the bull, and laid it on the wood. Then he said, "Fill 4 pots of water, pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood." They did it again. He said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time." He said, and they did it a 3rd time. By now the water was flowing around the altar. It had filled the trench. Then, when it came time for offering, the evening offering, Elihu the prophet approached and said, "Adonai, God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, that I am your servant, and I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, Adonai, hear me, so that this people may know that you, Adonai, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back to you." Then the fire of Adonai fell. It consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It licked up the water in the trench. All the people saw it. They fell on their faces and said, "Adonai is God! Adonai is God!" Elihu said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let one of them escape." They seized them. Elihu brought them down to the Vadi Kishon and killed them there. Then Elihu said to Achav, "Get up, eat, and drink, because I hear the sound of heavy rain." Achav went up to eat and drink, while Elihu went up to the top of Carmel. He bowed down to the ground and put his face between his knees. Now he said with his servant, "Go up and look outward toward the sea." He went up, looked, and said, "There's nothing there." 7 times he said, "Go again." The 7th time the servant said, "Now there's a cloud coming out of the sea, no bigger than a man's hand." Elihu said, "Go up and say to Achav, prepare your chariot and go down from this mountain before the rain stops you." A little later the sky grew black with clouds. The wind and heavy rain began falling as Achav, riding in his chariot, made for Yisrael. The hand of Adonai was in Elihu. He tucked up his clothing and ran ahead of Achav in the entrance of Yisrael. Achav told this Izabel everything Elihu had done and how he had pulled all the prophets to the sword. Then Izabel sent a messenger to say to Elihu, "May the gods do terrible things to me and worse ones besides, if by this time tomorrow I haven't taken your life, just as you took theirs." Seeing that, he got up and fled for his life. When he arrived in Beersheba in Yehudah, he left his servant there, but he himself went a day further into the desert until he came to a broom tree. He sat down under it and prayed for his own death. "Enough," he said. "Now, Adonai, take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." And he lay down under the broom tree and went to sleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there by his head was a cake bread on hot stones and a jug of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel came again a 2nd time, touched him and said, "Get up and eat. The journey will be too much for you." He got up, ate and drank, and on the strength of that meal traveled 40 days and nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went to a cave and spent the night. And the word of Adonai came to him and said to him, "What are you doing here, Elihu?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for Adonai, the God of armies, because the people of Israel have abandoned your covenant, broken down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. Now I'm the only one left. They're coming after me to kill me too." He said, "Go outside and stand on the mountain before Adonai." Right then and there Adonai went past. A mighty blast of wind tore the mountains apart and broke the rocks in pieces before Adonai, but Adonai was not in the wind. After the wind came an earthquake, but Adonai was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, fire broke out, but Adonai was not in the fire. After the fire came a quiet, subdued voice. When Eliyahu heard it, he covered his face in his cloak. He stepped out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then the voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Eliyahu?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for Adonai, the God of armies, because the people of Israel have abandoned your covenant, broken down your altars, and killed the prophets with the sword. Now I'm the only one left. They're after to kill me too." Adonai said to him, "Go back by the way of Damascus desert. When you get there, anoint Hazael to be king over Aram. Also anoint Jehu, the son of Nimshi, to be king over Israel, and anoint Elisha, the son of Shaphat, as Avel Mecholah, to be prophet after you. Jehu will kill whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will kill whoever escapes the sword of Jehu. Still I will spare 7,000 in Israel, every knee that hasn't bent down before Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." So now left and found Elisha the son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. He himself was behind the 12th. Eliyahu went over to him and threw his cloak on him. He left the oxen, ran after Eliyahu, and said, "Please, let me kiss my father and mother goodbye. Then I will follow you." He answered, "Go, but return, because of what I did to you." Elisha stooped down to him, and he took the yoke of oxen, slaughtered them, cooked their meat over the wooden yokes of oxen, and gave it to the people to eat. Then he got up, went after Eliyahu, and became his servant.